What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm super excited to deliver the full review of the Diablo 4 game that we had access to, and this is the review copy of the game, and it's basically the full game. There were some exceptions, like for example, we didn't have access to the shop, I didn't have access to the battle pass, but it was the full game. The whole purpose of it is, of course, to give out review copies so we can give them some quick feedback, or if there's anything that really needs to be adjusted, we can, of course, tell them. So starting right off, I want to go ahead and mention that I've been playing Diablo for a very long time. That's Diablo 1, 2, and 3. I've been even playing Diablo mods. Heck, I'm an admin for some of the Diablo mods in the community. So I play a lot of Diablo. This is not just a video game review for just like a game that, you know, I just happened to stumble upon. I've been playing Diablo for many years. If this is your first time here, welcome indeed. But I'll be comparing it with the previous games in the Diablo series. But if you've never played a Diablo game before and this is your first one and you're seeing lots of ads for this game, because this is going to be probably one of the biggest games of the year, if not one of the biggest games of the next few years to come, with the game's future life cycle with DLC and seasons. So this could be an excellent entry series if you've never played an action RPG before. Maybe your friend's like, hey dude, play Diablo with me. Maybe get, you know, your friend to play couch co-op. This is going to be an excellent game if you've never played. But if you've been playing Diablo for many years like myself, you will feel right at home, and this game does have some really cool things to kind of offer for you. But in terms of complexity, that is going to be something that you'll see later in the gameplay series. Starting right off, I'm going to go ahead and mention that there will be no spoilers. We can't actually give you any story spoilers anyways. Everything that you're going to see is going to be part of the end game content. So starting right off, really quick. If you like Diablo 3, if you like Diablo Immortal, you will like Diablo 4, more than likely. Now, if you really like Diablo 2, you may like Diablo 4 as you progress, or with the later DLC and expansions and seasons in terms of complexity. This game feels a little bit short on that side of things. If you like your games to be super complex, if you like to spend hours and hours theory crafting builds, this game is more about kind of get in there and go and play and have fun and get loot with your friends. That's kind of the core identity of the game when you compare it to, let's say, Diablo 2, where you're going to be farming for weeks to try to get that special rune, to try to build up this RuneWord that's going to take a really long time, but it's going to make you feel a huge jump in power. Whereas Diablo 4's itemization and progression is kind of just like, you have item power as you progress. The item almost has an item level that is tied to your progression. So a item that drops at level 1 is going to be far worse. Or if you've even played Diablo 2, there are certain items that can drop in the game earlier on, and they can be the best item in the game. For example, the SOJ, arguably for some builds, is the best ring in slot, and it's a very low level item in terms of its item level compared to some of the later stages. In this game, you're going to be swapping gear left and right, but once you start getting towards the end game, you'll notice that there's these items called sacred items, and there's even ancient items. Most of those items are going to be where the complexity actually evolves with the game, and I think that that is a great design decision because they kind of want people to get in and be able to play. There's a lot more stuff that will be coming out in the future, but we'll get into that in a moment. So starting right off the bat, is the game functional? Because there are so many games that will come out day one, even AAA titles, and you're just like, what the heck? Why is there still bugs? Was this even tested? That is not the case with Diablo 4. This game, in terms of the review copy, I had no crashes whatsoever. Now, in terms of bugs, they are going to be releasing a day one patch that is going to be patching out some of the bugs that did exist in the game. Even if they don't patch the bugs, the game, I would say, is a 9 out of 10 in terms of glitches and bugs. Like, could you complete the game? Were there a bunch of game-breaking things that you would run into? No. The game is pretty much, the review copy was nearly perfect. And if they fix everything that was mentioned that they understood were bugs, the game will be 10 out of 10 in terms of bugs. Sure, maybe someone will find some bug. For the most part, though, the game functions, and that is super glad to be able to do here, because that's something that I actually care about, because sometimes I almost expect day one games to not function. So the game functions perfectly fine. Let's get that out of the way. Speaking of the campaign, like I said, I can't talk too much about the campaign, but I know that it's like part of like a review process. Sometimes people want to know, how long is the campaign? I would say it really depends on your speed, though, because there's probably going to be speedrunners that can maybe do it in 10 hours, and there's going to be people maybe take 20 or 30 or 40 hours to complete the campaign, depending on if you just going and doing side quests. And one thing I want to mention that's really cool, after you complete the campaign, there is so much more content. Like, I don't think anyone could really complete this game with all of the content, and you're going to need to complete the content, like in terms of side quests, you're going to need to do those in order to get all of your Paragon points, in order to get all of your skill points. You're going to need to complete these things. So realistically, the game has a lot of content. I play a lot of Diablo 3 as well, and with Diablo 3, I can go in a weekend, get all the best gear, get max level within an hour, or have my buddy level me in 15 minutes. I can get all the gear required for the game. Diablo 4 is not like that. It's a lot slower. It's called grounded is the term that they're using. So you're not going to be teleporting around, killing everything super fast, at least as of right now. Maybe with future expansions and DLC, maybe with some crazy unique items later down the line, sure. But the game is more grounded is the correct term. So it's a little bit slower pace is the best way to put it. The difficulties in the game, there are 4 different difficulties. You get 2 at the start and 2 are unlocked later. You want to try to get to the 3rd world tier as quickly as possible, basically, because some items, they literally cannot drop. If you play Diablo 2, think of it like the certain areas, like, you know, up top of my head, like the ancient tunnels, the pits, like there are certain areas that would actually drop, like, you know, specific items would not drop unless you were doing very specific things, right? Because the item level, right? Where Diablo 4, it's basically tied to the world tier. And the game does get more challenging, but the game is actually quite challenging, especially when you get hit with vulnerability and frozen. Sometimes you're just dead, and that is something that is a little bit different with the previous Diablo games that really wasn't seen in Diablo 2 and 3 as much as in Diablo 1. In Diablo 1, a lot of given moments, if you get surrounded, you can actually die because of hit stun, right? And in this game, if you get frozen or dazed, there's a lot of conditions that you will be hit by, and you can just not be able to react to it and move to it. There are certain abilities that can remove them, and will give you what's called unstoppable in the game. But for the most part, in terms of it being similar to Diablo 1, that's the closest thing that you'll get to Diablo 1 gameplay. It's a lot faster than Diablo 1, but in terms of, like, will you enjoy this game? Like I mentioned before, if you like Diablo 3, you like Diablo Immortal, you'll be right at home with this game. You'll more than likely have a great time. But if you like Diablo 2, I think the complexity will happen later. So if you felt like me, because I was feeling this in the previous versions of the Alpha, the Server Slam, like in the earlier stages of Diablo, you're not really looking for your stats on your pieces of gear for the most part. You're not, like, looking at it like, oh, do I need enough dexterity to have this item equipped? Does this item have attack speed? Does it have this certain role? You can upgrade those things later in the game, but you don't really want to upgrade those things earlier on. It's basically a waste of your resource, because you're just going to swap weapons consistently because, again, the way that the progression systems works, and I believe that's kind of how it is actually designed. So in terms of the game, I already gave it in terms of bugs, I gave it like a 9 out of 10, but if they fix all the things that they mentioned that they're aware of that were in the review copy, then it's a 10/10. It's all good. Visuals in terms of like cinematics, like I said, I can't give you guys spoilers on cinematics, but Blizzard actually has like the best cinematics in the industry, let's be honest here. And in terms of visuals, in terms of gameplay, the physics in the game, this game destroys a lot of even the future action RPGs that will be coming out in the future. This game's physics system is absolutely amazing, and it played super smooth. Oh, by the way, just for reference, I'm running this on a 3080, and I'm running this on an i7 12900K, and I run it on 32 gigabytes of RAM. So I would expect it to play super smooth, okay? So it looks really good. I played pretty much on max settings, although I disable like bloom effects. I've never really liked that. So the sharpness is cranked up a little bit because I don't like my game looking blurry, but some people prefer that and they think it looks better. But for the most part, like, yeah, I'm pretty much maxed out on the graphics, and I had no like bugs, no crashes, didn't have any blue screens, didn't have any of that. So that was at least my experience. But again, I was on a game mode where, you know, we didn't have everyone trying to log in at once. So maybe day one, you might have a login queue. I don't know. But for the most part, the game runs perfectly fine. Now, in terms of numerical values, like what would I give it in terms of visuals? I think that this game dominates the market in terms of visuals. It's the best on the market. Like, if I was to look at any other action RPG, what is the highest tier in terms of visuals? PoE 2 is looking pretty good. Wolfenstein still is one of the better looking action RPGs, but how smooth and how everything looks in terms of the visuals, I would give it a numerical 10. I think that that would be almost objectively, you can't really give it less than a 9 or a 10 for the game's visuals. The game looks really good. What they set to do for the game, they did an excellent job for that. What I mean by visuals is not like visual clutter, by the way, because sometimes there can be a lot of things on the ground and you may not be able to see everything because there's just you know, explosions. You get hit by a freeze. Sometimes visual clutter can kind of be a thing, but in terms of like how good the graphics are, I would give it a 10. In terms of sounds, I think the sound effects are amazing. They actually did a dedicated video, and I did a video on it when they were showing off some of the sounds that they were adding to the game. Like, you could hear a lot of great sounds. So in terms of like sound effects, I would say it's probably objectively like a 9 or a 10. You can't really give it anything less than that. They did a lot of great work with sound. They recorded so many individual sounds. You can hear so many things if you play this game with headphones. Now, the thing that actually this game suffers from, in my personal opinion, as a person that really loves action RPGs, this is the biggest downside with Diablo 4. And it's not actually always going to be considered a bad thing, because sometimes for the innovation, that's going to be coming later in the game. Heck, they had insane innovation. They had RuneWords in the game. They had mythic items in the game. These are going to be probably added with DLC and expansion packs. I know some people always have the mindset, well, they're keeping it, they locked it away so they could, sell it to us later. And I don't think that that's the case. What they wanted to do with their goal and their vision with Diablo 4 is create a game where everyone can jump in and play, and the complexity with these RuneWords and these crazier things, that's going to come later with expansions and DLC. You don't want to scare your newer audience away with complexity, because I know a lot of times, since I do create content for PoE, I open up the skill tree and people freak out. It's a very normal thing. I like complexity in my games. I want to be blown away with their game design systems in terms of the end game, with some of the things that you can do with a Paragon board, where you can rotate it, which, let's be honest, Wolsten had that rotation, and I really wanted to see some crazy innovation. I wanted to be blown away. And like what this game offers, and I want to get into this next, which is kind of the whole thing in terms of innovation, there really isn't anything new that Diablo 4 brings to the table that isn't seen in other action RPGs, or in Diablo Immortal, or in Diablo 3. For example, the one new thing that's not in the other Diablo series is mounts. Mounts just are brand new to it. Now, how complex are mounts? Well, you literally go on them and you move from point A to point B. You can actually jump off the mount and you can actually do some damage. Of course, you can get cosmetics, so it is a form of progression in terms of like, I finally got the mount, because you don't start off with the mount when you play the game. Even if you buy the battle pass, by the way, you don't just get the mount. You have to you'll get it eventually. I can't spoil it. I'll be making a dedicated video on how to get the mount, but you won't start off with it, is what I'm trying to say. But that's been done before in other action RPGs, other MMOs have done mounts. In terms of the world boss, again, this is nothing new. There's lots of raids. You just get to go fight it, though. You don't have to do like a big, long quest line to go to the world boss. You just have to be at the end game. Grim Favors are literally just like bounties if you've played Diablo 3. That's literally the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and actually fast forward to another section over here called the Helltide, because this is another form of endgame content that can be kind of argued that it's new. So what is a Helltide event? So certain areas are considered Helltide. This is accessible once you get to World Tier 3, and you're going to have to do a very special quest to get to World Tier 3. But what you do in here is you kill enemies. They will drop a very special currency that you can actually trade for items. Think of it kind of like a special item that you're going to be using to open up chests. And when you do certain objectives that are very similar to the objectives that you've already seen before, when you played the Server Slam, it's just basically a little event happens and you're going to be getting these aberrant cinders. You pick those up and then you trade them in just like you would, but you almost guarantee yourself like a legendary. You basically open up these chests. You'll see it in a second over here, but it's another form of endgame content, but it's really nothing that innovative or anything brand new to the game. In terms of Nightmare Dungeons, which I'm sure you guys already actually saw gameplay here while I was talking, but basically think of it like a map. If you played other action RPGs, it has modifiers on it that can make it harder, but Diablo 4 actually gives you modifiers that make it easy. This was actually already seen in Diablo Immortal. When you throw in the crest, sometimes you get a positive effect, sometimes you get a negative effect, right? So there's a little bit of play with that, but for the most part, it's already been done before. It's nothing brand new to the series. Again, I wanted to be blown away with this game. The Paragon board, now, I know some people are like, dude, that's crazy, you can rotate. It is kind of cool they can rotate, but it doesn't really matter too much. At the end of the day, there's going to be numerically, someone's going to figure out a math system, and they're going to tell you which one is going to be the best for whatever legendary nodes that you want to hit. And all of these legendary nodes, for me personally, are super underwhelming. All the nodes are bonus damage to enemies that have been stunned, trapped, on fire, bleeding, frozen, chilled, stunned. All these conditions are just more damage at the end of the day when X condition is met for the most part. Now, the craziest thing with this is the most complexity that this game actually has is actually when items can actually count skills as other skills, which I actually think is the most big brain thing. Now, in terms of innovation, that was actually pretty smart, because there's skills where your werebearer skills now count as earth skills. And what that does is uniques that work with earth skills now work with all of your bear skills. That was actually big brain, and I want to give him massive credit for that. So in terms of innovation, numerically, what would I actually give it? I would probably give it a 4 out of 10, and it is legitimately, like, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I think that this game was not designed to make it complex. Like I said, they want to come out with these crazier things later. But in terms of innovation, that, where like your trap skills can count as like, other skills, I think that is a really cool thing, because that opens up the doors for a lot of different builds potentially in the future. When you have certain items, you may want to go ahead and actually save them. So in terms of complexity and innovation, I feel like it's very shallow, but it's done on purpose. Things that I would love to see in the game, and maybe this could be in the future, and maybe it'll be in DLCs. The Kanai's Cube would be really cool. They actually already had things called mythic items, which were legendaries that would have multiple legendary stats on them, which was really cool. That was removed from the game from the previous series that they did show off. This was at like BlizzCon many years ago. I think it was 2019. I would love to see the Kanai's Cube. I think the Kanai's Cube is one of the craziest things that we've had in Diablo, and I would really like to see that innovation in the game. And I'm hoping in the future we can get more things. And I think that we will get more things. And again, they're doing this on purpose to make it so it's a little bit easier for people to go ahead and hop in and be able to play. Compared to the previous Diablo series, in terms of the campaign goes, there's a lot of walking around, and that's kind of a good thing, because you get to explore the world. One thing that this game does that the other Diablo games don't do as much is you could kind of explore. You can go into this little like area, and they want you to do this because you gotta get those Lilith statues. And then on top of that, there are quests that you'll find like super far away. And I'm gonna show you guys some really cool ones, because there's some secret bosses. In fact, there are secret bosses after you complete the campaign. There are some extra secret bosses. I'm gonna be making a dedicated video towards that as well, because there's just so much content to cover. So in terms of numerically, like, what would I give this game? One thing I do want to mention though, I really felt like this game should have launched with just PvP that you can queue up with. There is PvP in the game. That's one thing that could be argued as that kind of newer, that's not in the previous Diablo games. But I would really like to see that 3v3 arena that they showed off in Diablo 3 that I got to play at BlizzCon, but never came out in the official copy of the game. I want to see just that. That's all I would want to see. I really want to see some sort of ranked mode for PvP. Maybe that can come out later. But I just want a PvP system where it's on Fairgrounds, where I can queue up, versus like I get to hide over here. This guy's doing a quest. I'm going to go ahead and like assassinate him, take his little like red shards. That's kind of how PvP may actually be. And that's just going to be something that exists until maybe later down the line we'll get a more competitive, a more prestigious mode for PvP. But I want to go it off with my numerical score. What would I give this game? Okay, so in terms of like an overall score, I think the lowest that anyone could realistically give this game is a 7. There's no way that you could say that this is like a terrible game in the action RPG genre. Like, it's a fantastic action RPG, and it's a great foundation. So 7, I think, is the lowest that I could see anyone realistically giving this game. And the highest that I can see anyone giving this game, I think there will be people that will give this game a 10 out of a 10. So if you're looking for like numerical stats, that's where I would range it. 7 to 10 is a very realistic number for this game in terms of like low and in the max. Obviously, some of you guys want my review. I think the game, for me, will be really fun for a few weeks, but I will max out. I'm a min-maxer. I was ranked 2 this season for Diablo 3 as the Demon Hunter, and usually I max out and then I wait for the next season, and I just kind of I'm sitting there waiting for that new content. I want higher retention rate on this game, and PvP will hopefully keep me over. I didn't really experience that much PvP. I honestly just killed one person again and again. I felt bad, but like there was no one at this area to do PvP because it's like kind of towards the end of the game. So what would I give the game? I think it honestly is a phenomenal foundation. I think I would give it anywhere from an 8 or a 9 out of 10. The only thing I really wanted was PvP to be like more focused in on. If they did that, I could easily give this game a 9 or a 10. But I think it's got a really great foundation. But I wanted to enter Diablo 4 with just my mind blown with some of their crazy ideas. And what they did is they stayed relatively safe, and it's a great game. And sometimes people don't want to innovate. They figure it's working, why change something that's already working? And, you know, I can respect that because at the end of the day, they have delivered a really good game. But I would love to know your thoughts down below on any of the things that we talked about. What did you like the most about the game? And obviously, most people are watching this before the game is going to be released. So my other question to you is, what class are you going to be planning to play at the start? Mine is going to be Rogue. But if you guys have any more questions, I'll be following up with a lot more videos in the future. We're going to be going over like endgame guides and kind of all of these things, how to unlock the tier 3. But for the most part, I wanted to try to condense this into one video. But in terms of my review, there's like kind of like subnumerical scores in different categories. So visuals 10, sound effects 10, innovation I gave it a 4. In terms of what would I give the game, easily an 8 or a 9. The lowest I could see anyone giving this game that's like, you know, credited and respected is probably like a 7, and I could easily see people giving this game a 10 out of 10, and they wouldn't really be far off. But anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you want to see more guides and more things in the future and a lot more Diablo content in the future, subscribe to that bell and you'll definitely see more, or maybe even other action RPGs in the future. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.